really do appreciate you guys going out of your way. We've had a few of these already, and they've really been special because they're just intended to be this size, so we can just be a family a little bit with a few folks and just share our heart, share a little bit of the vision. But it's been really special. So everybody, breathe in your nose, out your mouth real slow. We don't ask you for money tonight, okay? Just want you to rest, relax. You're all good. A couple things in this packet. Does everybody have this? I think it could be good if everyone had that follow along. There's this little FAQ page, and these are frequently asked questions. These are essentially answers to questions that were patternable, kind of the most common questions we got when we did our congregational survey. So these are us speaking to a lot of questions that were repeated to us from the congregation, and we hope that would maybe help clarify. So you may have some questions this evening, and this may already speak to some of those, and if not, we have a section of our website and our app that has frequently asked questions, and we will do our best to keep that updated as well. So if anything comes in that's unique that we need to add to that, you can find those answers on the website, but we'll keep people posted. We've tried to do our best to be really transparent and make sure we hear from everyone, because this was a big effort. The next page that I'd like you to look at looks like this, and it says creative gifts. There are ways that people sometimes decide to help out in something like a campaign, and there are some creative ways to do that as well. So there are a couple of guys that are helping us have those conversations with you if you would like to give in a more creative way or unique way with some of these creative gifts. Justin Tarrant is the one who heads up that team for us. And so if you don't know Justin, he is also at ACC, but a wonderful guy. This whole campaign has been led by our volunteers. We have a really big team actually working on all of this, reminding you, sending out communications, printing this material, making the food. Can we thank Belinda? She's done the food the whole time. That's why it took me a minute, because I got into that, whatever that parfait was, and it was so good. But anyway, it's just been a great labor of love from that whole volunteer team. So Justin heads up this team, and here's what you'll see on there: things like securities, real estate, CDs, just different things like that you may be able to contribute in a way that you say, I don't necessarily want to take this cash and give that, but I could maybe contribute in a creative way. So if you see something there you didn't know about, it could be a way that you could help us if the Lord leads you to be a part of this campaign. One guy doesn't go to our church, wish he did, but pretty cool. They were telling me about, he had 12 rental houses. And so what he decided to do was tithe one of those. He took one of his rental house income. He was a long time retired, had no children. And so he was just thinking creatively what he could do. So in perpetuity, he just set that up to where that one house would give the income from that rental to the campaign. So there's creative ways. Sometimes people find a way to be a part, and maybe something will jump out at you that stands out, and you go, yeah, maybe that would be a way we could help. So that's what that's about. If you did have one of those, we would put you in touch with Justin, and you could talk with him about whatever idea you had there and see if we could help see that through. The rest of it has a little commitment card, and that is basically the idea is we would bring this back on our Challenge Sunday, I believe it is, or Commitment Sunday, I think it's called. I get a little turned around. Mike has to clear it up usually. That card has the ability to fill it out and kind of say, this is what I believe the Lord may put on our heart. It's over 36 months is what it suggests. And there's some freedom in there to kind of suggest how you feel that the Lord would be working through you to give. The reason we need this, we're not going to follow up with you and remind you to do anything with this. The reason we're doing this is we're going to collect the totals, and we think it'll give a lot of confidence to the church to see what people felt like they could do. And we'll announce that in December, not by names, just a total contributions, so the church can go, oh, okay. I mean, this is what came out of the room, what people felt like they could do, and that would give us an idea how close we feel we are to that goal, and just build some confidence that we can do what we believe the Lord has given us to do. So that's the goal of that card, and at the end, that'll be yours to take home. If you have this right here, let's jump into this book, and we'll just work through the book tonight. Let me look at the time. I want to make sure and respect your time tonight. So I'll try to be done in 40 minutes. 8:15 is our goal, so 8:10 if I can wrap up, and if anyone has any questions. So on the first page, the inside, it has a letter from Tim. So I will just kind of highlight a couple of things in this, and then some of these we'll read together. I think they're helpful. So it starts out just reminding us, it says that it just surreal that about 5 years ago, from a time of sorrow, we had a friend in our community that had passed away, and that led us to have gospel conversations that began Argyle Community Church. Now, over 350 people we have personally discipled. So the neat things about these meetings to me has been how many people have been in that. So how many of you guys at some point have been in a discipleship, maybe our multipliers or 18-week thing, or you're in it or been in it? I mean, guys, that's crazy. It's crazy, Mike. Crazy. Most of you guys have been with probably me or Mike, right? Almost all of you. So we model that, we live that, we love that, and we're excited about God doing that through you. I had a guy this week that sat with me, and he said, I finally understand what you mean about what God does in smaller environments over large environments. He said, I sat down to do discipleship with a guy, goes to church. The first week he did his homework and he understood the gospel, and the second week they talked about faith. The third week they were supposed to talk about the authenticity of Scripture, how we can prove the Bible, internal, external evidence, as we've talked about, the messianic prophecies. Instead of going there, the guy looks up and he goes, why does the church want my money? So he said, I realized that's, on a Sunday morning, it'd be awkward if that guy raised his hand and was like, hey, I hear what you're saying, but why do y'all want my money? No one has the courage to do that on Sunday, right? It's a one-way convo. Sitting across the table, he began to talk to this guy about, regardless of where you were to part with any money, you can't serve God and money. God may be working on you to see, could you return to him things that already belong to him and not consume all of it? That's a wonderful thing when we can live a generous life. And so he said he thought, cool, I've answered that question. We can get back to the material next week. And they get back next week, and the guy goes, hey, I moved into an apartment with a girl I'm not married to. What's God think about that? And he was like, okay, so this is why we have to do this, because if that guy's sitting in a row looking at the back of someone's head, giving a little money to keep this thing going and never gets to ask, sometimes we don't have that moment, right? So the gospel starts to do work in small environments, and we love doing discipleship because in those moments, people have a safe way sometimes to go, man, this is my real life. This is really where I'm at. I'm wondering. So he talked to this guy about God's design for marriage and what God desired for purity and things in his life. And so he moved out, got an apartment. He was scared to tell her. He thought she would think he was breaking up with her. And instead, he went over there, got an apartment, proposed to her. They got engaged. They're going to get married. All things that come out of a little discipleship meeting, and you don't even see that coming. So that's been the beauty of what we're doing is that personal relationship lets us know people, lets them know other people, lets them grow in real areas of their life that they're walking through. So here we are 5 years later, over 350 people we've been blessed to do that with. I also want you to know that churches that begin like this, 80% of them fail in the first 3 to 5 years. The number one reason is finance. Most of the time they don't have good process. We have been really blessed to have a really clear-cut approach to finance, so it's put us in an incredibly healthy position in a really short time. The second reason is marital unfaithfulness of a pastor. So those things are heart-wrenching, and you see under stress, somebody step into something like this, it's very unpredictable, and for whatever reason, the enemy loves to use this stuff to mess people up. So we've done some crazy stuff to try to put guardrails in our lives to where we reduce to zero the chance of anything like that. And as soon as someone told me that, I was like, all right, well, it's pretty easy way for me to know what I need to be doing when we start, right? I need to make sure there's tons of accountability in finance, and I need to make sure that my wife and I are well and healthy, and I put all the guardrails in my life to avoid that. And we talk about that a lot as a team and a staff. But now 5 years in, we've hit a pretty big marker, and it let us know we really believe what we've done is not competing with our town, but completing some of the mission by having a unique way to relationally invest in people through discipleship. And that's the metric we measure. And we think God wants to put a permanent flag in this town of ACC, and that he wants us to build a home. So if you look down, you'll see the word home. It's H-O-M-E, they're kind of bold-faced. That'll give you an idea. these are some reasons why we think we're going to build this. Letter H is the word hope. Hope for continued life change through reliance on Jesus Christ. So everything we're doing, we believe this new opportunity for us to be here permanently gives us a chance to do what anybody who loves the Lord would do, and that is to see lives changed through Jesus. That's the focus of it. Letter O, opportunity to expand our ministry outreach in dynamic new ways. So here are some things we can't do. When we rent a school, we don't have anything midweek that we can use it for. So we can't have a midweek student service. We can't do things like VBS in there or things like camps for communities. Chick-fil-A has a summer camp for kids that we can partner. They'll pay for the whole thing. We have one volunteer for every 10 kids, and on Wednesdays we just preach the full gospel, and on Fridays we share the gospel with their parents. All kind of ways we can reach out to the community that way. If we build a place like this, those things that we couldn't do, we'll be able to do every day of the week. We're not building a place that's going to sit empty for 7 days. We're building a place with a lot of intentional design to be full all the time, including a preschool where we can get the gospel in kids at a young age, play spaces to where moms could drop off and kids can play, and they can share that space for discipleship and have a coffee and share the word with each other. Just all kind of ways that we know we can use that facility. So we think there's some real ways to expand that outreach. Another one is we instead of, sometimes churches will build a building and hope people find it. But we always look, how do people gather and how do we set up in the middle of it? And another way that people gather in this town all the time is children's, grade age athletics. We see it all the time. So programs like I-9 and Upward, where we have gospel-centered programming, a place where when we have those tournaments, we can share our faith, open gyms, times with the gymnasium, multi-purpose stuff that we're doing, it gives a chance for co-ed athletics or pickleball in there or volleyball to be played or, church events there where we can invite people. So just lots of things. The outreaches and the way that we do the things we do for Easter with Mike and Carrie opens up a whole lot of things during those seasons that they can do to have community outreach to them. So many, many opportunities with this that we can't do now that we think we can leverage for the gospel. And I know that when we make those relationships, we'll ask people for an hour a week and disciple them. Otherwise, I wouldn't really care to do that unless I could measure the impact. But I've seen this church for a long time now, and that I know that people will follow through with that. So we're going to engage as many people in our community, keep getting them to the table, see them saved, baptized, discipled, and then I know that they'll find a home that way. Letter M, mentorship. So there's space in there for us to be doing, mentoring and discipling. That's always going to be a heart of what we do. I tell people, and our staff can confirm, I never sit down on a Tuesday at our staff meetings and say, how many people did we have this week versus last week? It's just not a question I ask. What I do ask them is how many people are being mentored, how many people are in discipleship, how many people are sharing their faith, and how many people are using their gifts for the kingdom, because our job is to equip people for the work of the ministry. And if that metric is healthy, our church has just followed in a really healthy way. I haven't had to focus on the big number of attendance as much as how healthy are the other numbers of the Great Commission. And when we do that, God seems to be creating a really healthy place. I tell people it would be hard to split our church because the relationships are just that deep. It would be really difficult. And then letter E, so H-O-M-E. E is engagement with the community to demonstrate God's love for those around us, so we can let the community also use the property. There's times where places like Calvary, it's a private school up here in Denton, or homeschool co-ops, or the New Song School of Music. They have 1,280 kids and need space to do a recital. There's ways our property with this can also bless our community, and we think it could be a blessing to them. They could use those spaces in creative ways. So there's lots of ways I think this place can be used for God. And in those moments, I hope we'll just keep making relationships, leveraging those to reason with people with the gospel around the table first, and then see if they're looking for a church home. So that's just a little bit of the heart behind that. The foundation of how this started. So we mentioned our buddy John. He passed away at 50, and he had some kids. And I knew Luke and Cooper and Laney pretty well. Knew Miss Kendra pretty well. I'm right now discipling Kendra's husband, Jeff. And that's really been an honor for me. But when John passed, a lot of people started asking, why would a good God allow, someone at that age to pass away and leave their children? And that gave me a really great opportunity to talk about the hope that we have after this, right? John 14, Jesus said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And he did that. And he told us how we could get there. Because Thomas said, we don't know how you're getting there. And Jesus said, well, I am the way. And I am the truth. And I am the life. The way to the Father is through me. And when I got a chance to start sharing that with people, my buddies were coming to faith. And enough people kind of gathering around. And we started talking. And I called David Metis. And we were friends at the time. And I just said, man, this is crazy. But I have this huge heart for this city and all these guys. And one of them mentioned something to me, and it sounded a little crazy. You think I'm nuts? I kind of would love to just do church here and be a pastor and pastor these people. And David said, I'm in. I was like, okay. So we all got together, and in the beginning, it was funny. It was humble. We brought our own lawn chairs, like literally lawn chairs, and folded them out on turf in a little indoor facility. And here we are now. On an Easter Sunday, I think we had 11 or 1,200 people in 2 full services in that auditorium. So amazing how God has done what he's done before we've really had anything else but just each other in the gospel. And we don't want this to overtake that. We want that heart that we had in the beginning to stay that way. And we can do that relationally, I believe, if we keep discipling. So this all kind of had that foundation of just relationships through a tragedy and turned into this. And then we said we want to build it around a certain culture. So our doctrinal statements are on the website. This is not intended to be doctrine. This is just the culture of what we sat and looked at 10 things we thought would help us stay well, building a culture at ACC. And we really do this. The way we phrase that is we say it's on the wall, but it happens down the hall. Like, we actually live this out. Here's what they are. Number one, we guard integrity. So we know that without integrity, this thing would fall. There's a lot of checks and balances to make sure that we have integrity in what we're doing. Little things, like if I want to spend any funds, I have to first ask before I do that, and then fill out the same RFP as anybody on the staff. I'm not a pastor with access to cash, autonomously. I can't see who in here gives. I don't know what you give. So if you're here because you gave money, I wouldn't know. It helps me treat you the same as anybody else. We have a team that does that, and they're not there looking at names either, but we get reports with totals or dollar totals. But those things have process that keep us all in balance and in check. We've got a leadership council that sits over that once a month with us, and we have a fairly lengthy meeting just making sure if there's anything serious that we need to be working through, and they pray for us. We get reports from the staff. It's very intentional that we have accountability and integrity as a church. Secondly, we value why more than what. And what we mean there is we're not thinking about like, what do we need to do next? What do we need to build? It's more, why are we doing this? And we are doing this because we're seeing genuine lives totally transformed by the gospel through the time we have with them each week outside of church. And so we always are reminded of why we're doing that. 3, we make it better. So we are trying to improve. So as we get to a spot where we know, man, we need to be doing this well, sometimes that takes time or money or investment. And it also takes teachability. People have to be able to tell us, this isn't well, and we need to be able to receive it. So we are trying to always be receptive of that and improve as a church, and learn from any mistakes and do our best to make this better. Number 4, we believe church exists for others. So we say it this way: we grow from the outside in instead of the inside out. The way we reach our community is to get outside. People that are not there, we believe, deserve to be connected to the gospel. So if the gospel is good enough for us and our kids, it's good enough for people out here right now that are devastated tonight. Their families are in shambles. There's issues with their work and finance, and they need godly people in their lives. So we really never just settle and go, okay, us 4 and no more. We have a real evangelistic heart to say, who's not here that if we could reach them, their lives could be transformed too by the gospel. So we believe the church really exists also for others. We grow smaller to grow larger. So a lot of churches, they do that down to small groups. We take it further into discipleship. So we get it as small as we can get it, because if we can get it small, then people can open up and be honest and really grow. So as the church expands, we're going to keep trying to grow smaller while it gets larger. That's a very intentional thing we do. People have asked me, is it going to be a big church? I have no idea. I don't think it can be incredibly big because we're not building a place that's that big. But that's totally up to God. What we want to do is drive it as deep as we can, and then the Lord will decide how wide that's supposed to be. I figure if these are his kids, he'll know how many of them to drop off, right? So it may not be a lot. It may be more than I expected. That's never going to be a measurement that drives me. I want to know, are people really transformed deeply and being impacted by the gospel? So we're going to try to grow smaller as we grow larger. Next, we lead with questions. So our staff jokes about this sometimes, but we don't make a lot of aggressive statements in our team. We usually ask first. If we have something to say, we'll ask. And what happens is then someone can answer and tell me something I didn't know that helps me understand, and now I'm not mad anymore. That makes sense. We just have a culture where we like to lead with questions, and it's kept us really healthy. We lead by serving. So you'll see Pastor Mike, whether he's healthy or he's having, he's got COVID, whatever's going on with him. He'll pull in with the truck. He'll unload the truck with you. He'll be covered in sweat. We'll drill holes. He'll fix caster wheels, set up all the stuff. We'll run over, make sure everybody else's departments are set up. He'll go change clothes, run up on the stage, preach a message so I can have a Sunday off, run back out, pack everything up, load it up, get in the truck, park the truck. The whole team, the whole staff, there's nothing they're going to ask of you that we're not doing ourselves. And that's the culture. When we say we lead by serving, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we model and serve as a church. This is not a place where people will feel super comfortable just to sit. At some point, you'll probably feel a little pressure to roll your sleeves up. And I'm looking through here, and every one of you guys set up with us, tear down with us, run, tech and live stream and safety and security. And I mean, I don't even know where to go, like every one of you. And all the ladies serving all over the place, from the front of the room that I see to the back of the room to the kids ministries to the guys. It's just not a place where anybody's a spectator. You don't make it long at ACC if you are. We will wear you out for Jesus. All right, we talk to people, not about them. So when people come to me and they go, hey, I want to tell you about somebody, one of the ways we've kept the church unified is I say, that'd be great. They would just need to be here for us to talk about it. And they're like, well, it's not that big a deal, And I'm like, oh, you got healed. Look at that. It's so fast how God works, isn't it? And so we just have a real intentionality for unity, because Jesus' last prayer in John 17 was that we would be one as he and the Father is one. So that's a big part of our culture. We really want us to remain unified. We don't always see everything the same. We're not uniform, but we're not going to go at each other over those things. We're going to work until we find that agreement and love each other and serve each other well enough that if we're talking to each other, it usually works out just fine. And then we take time off. So I rotate through. I'm usually in the pulpit 3 times a month, and 1 time a month I'm usually in worship, with everybody else, just taking in that morning. I tend to come and help set up still, but those mornings are just really wonderful mornings for me to rest and take in worship and be with my family too. And so we just haven't overvalued anybody's personality, I guess. We don't have a personality-driven environment. It's not going to be built on a good-looking preacher, that's for sure. Ours is bold. It's not going to be built on any one personality. It's a shared effort. It's a collective effort. We really are a family. So everybody's willing to do parts of it, and then sometimes we rest, and we want everyone to do that. We don't want you serving every week either. We want everyone to rotate. That's why so many people are involved. If we didn't, and we couldn't rotate, we'd kill some people doing that. So we really want you guys to rest as well and have some time off, and that's okay. And then we try to love well. So those are the cultural commandments that we kind of put in place as a church. The benefits of the project, I think we'll read that. That's a good way to do it. So somebody volunteer to read that for us. It's the section there that says benefits of the project. Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Our new facilities align with our church's focus on doing life together, Monday through Saturday. In every detail, the design seeks to expand the potential of our various ministries to facilitate life change in our community. The 23,000 square foot single-story design includes the following: dedicated children's facilities, which will not only greatly expand the size of our children's ministry, but also allow us to operate children's programming 7 days a week, including the launch of a Christian preschool that will help meet community needs. Increased space for youth, both indoor and outdoor, providing a wider range of options for dynamic programming that energizes teens and preteens. A worship center with capacity for our largest events, from Sunday sermons to special holiday programs, ensuring that we can worship, learn, and grow together. Recreational spaces, including outdoor fields and a gymnasium that will engage our surrounding communities, particularly families, through youth sports, training, and community-based events. These and other elements will serve as valuable assets for ACC's mission to seek positive life change for those in our community. These facilities are designed to operate as a thriving hub of activity 7 days a week, showing Christ's love for those around us in ways that draw them closer.
Okay, so you can see a number of things that we're hopeful to do there with the property. Now, the square footage was a lot larger. Before COVID, we were trying to have a dedicated worship space. And the real thing we had to solve was how are we going to keep the project at the same dollar amount? Because we either had to make the dollar amount real high to stay with the larger square footage, or we had to reduce the square footage to get to the same dollar amount so that we could stay healthier, I think, financially as a church. We didn't want to be church poor. The reason that happened was anybody in here that's in construction post-COVID, you had interest rates go up, so money became more expensive. If we were to carry a balance, that was really going to be difficult. And construction materials, guys, it got high. Building got expensive. So building something for $275 or $300 a square foot, started pushing to $400 commercially. So everything just went up. So we had a lot of discussions. How are we going to solve it? And we put this out to bid, and we looked at some architects to kind of help us design. And we had a little bit of a fear of this. We were going to build a multi-purpose space, and it would feel like, we built a gymnasium. And we have a pretty nice auditorium right now. So we thought if we move out of an auditorium into a gym with some chairs, and everyone's like, yay, right? This was great. So what we had to do is can anybody help us turn that into something that has a focused and excellent environment that is more similar to what we're in? And Boca Powell did that. They did that in a very creative way. So Pastor Mike's showing us here on the screen. Can everybody see that? I don't know what the sight lines are like. Okay. So on the bottom floor, we'll roll out something that's going to cover the floor. And I think we're looking at those different coverings right now. We've got the logo. On the bottom floor, you've got some of the stackable luxury seating there that will make it feel better. But then we can treat the sides of it, and we have a retractable bleacher in the second level that comes out that also has the seat backs, and then another level up. And so it starts to feel very much like, if you think of our auditorium, the way it feels. Once we treat the sides, and the stage and everything is technically done, and we're flying the line arrays and the audio and production to make it, have the excellence, we'll be able to convert that room really fast into something that feels a whole lot more like a real auditorium. And no one else figured that out. Hats off to Boca. They sat down and said, here's how you can do it. Retracting the second level was really, really creative. At first, because of the number of seats we have, we may not have to do the third tier yet. We may just do the floor in the first tier. And we may wall off the top and use that for some other spaces initially. But we could do all of those in the first phase as well. Up top, I think there's a couple hundred seats-ish, 140 or so on the second level, and then probably 500-ish on the floor. So we have 856 seats in the current room. This could be on the low end, depending on how many chairs we set out, about 750, 780. And if we really max the room out, we could hit, put 900 seats in there. So what that does is it allows the church to grow pretty large, because when you think about kids programming, and there is a small venue for students on Sunday mornings if we need that space as well, even though we have high school in the main room, it's going to be big enough for us to put everybody in there, but it also will allow us, when we go to multi-service, to grow to a church of anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 in the current space without having to build that next phase yet. So if we can accomplish this with our designers and make it feel, excellent, I think this was a way that What we really did was take the larger dedicated worship space and find a way to make this space serve for both, and that cut out, $5 to $7 million by doing that right off. And then that gets us there really quickly. So we now have enough money in the bank that we're able to do a lot of this initial phase and have the funds in cash to do that. We're in a really good position to move this forward. If this campaign is, fairly successful, I feel like it's going to put us in a really healthy place. And I just think it's what the Lord has us to do now. So we're just trusting Him. I don't know exactly how everything will land as far as all of the dollars up front, but we have a really clear strategic way forward, and we also have a really good team that's involved in this. There are builders on our team that give oversight to this, and they're guys like Scott Pitt. Scott Pitt built the Catholic Church in our town. He has just taken another promotion with a company called Limbeck. He worked for Yates before that, and they build everything from massive casinos to huge downtown structures to schools. So they have a lot of insight to commercial building, and they're godly people, and they attend our church. And so they've rolled up their sleeves and got involved. Guys like Alex Payne has really been involved with us right now with the property and challenges we have with the actual dirt in the land and some of the property. And so God's just given us a lot of incredible people. And they've just, in a lot of ways, just pro bono said, what can we do to serve the Lord this way? So I have a lot of confidence with our finance council. They're wise. They have history in these things. Aaron's one of those leaders, that helps us make sure we do things well financially. Just a lot of excellent people God's blessed us with. So I feel really good about being able to accomplish this and move it forward. That'll give you an idea how we're taking this thing. I didn't want you to think it was just a gym. It'll be a really excellent environment. But once we clear the chairs out, you can also see you have seating there, just like our competition gym is at school, where you've got slope tier seating, and then you've got the floor to observe. So that allows us then to use that in a lot of really cool ways, that space to have the people to be able to watch the games and use the gym floor. I could see that serving in many, many ways in our community too. Once everything rolls up in the ceiling's blacked out, it kind of disappears. You won't feel like you're in a gym at that point. The children's facility, they haven't finished all the interior design, so I don't have the renderings to show you that, but it'll be excellent. Mike and Carrie have more history in that part of the world than, we're so blessed with their knowledge. They were in a very, very large church, have seen way down the road where we could ever go. Matter of fact, we could never get to where they've already been. So it's not going to outrun their influence and their direction with us. So I'm really confident with that. If you get to the back page that says vision, you'll see a kind of an overview of the simplistic size of that part of the building. There's a lot of intentionality on safety and security that's going to go into this. There's like one in and one out for the kids' wing. That foyer is glass, so it'll make it feel bigger. I think we're going to do an indoor-outdoor playground in the foyer as well on one end as they check in, so kids can play. But it's a pretty simple, big, large room, smaller, mid-sized venue on the backside that students can use for things, and men's and women's and breakfasts and teas and whatever we want to use that room for, and then a whole wing for children's as well, and the preschool. So let's see. The last thing to talk about, I guess, on the very last page is this chart of gifts. And the idea is that we would pray and consider if the Lord would have us contribute. And we still have 10 minutes, but I think I'll be done before that. So here's the big idea. There's some reasons people probably have to pray about this, okay? One is when someone goes to contribute in a situation like this where we're building, there are some challenges, right? Debt can be one of them. And I just want to set this up so you see this chart of gifts and why. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, it could be sickness, could be something with a business that failed, they're battling debt. So there's just not a lot of excess money that way, right? Ownership is another one. Maybe someone spiritually is working through, is this my money that I'm giving to God, or is this God's money that I'm returning a little bit of it, right? Do I own this? Does he own this? So we have a spiritual journey of praying through that. And then trust. I think that's a big deal. I think people go, I would do something substantial, but how can I trust that? So I would just encourage you, if you have questions about that, we'd love to let you meet with our finance team or discuss that and really open up everything to make sure that you don't have any concerns about, what we're doing and why. And I also know that people sometimes have trust issues when you watch the news the last 6 months, because you see people that made big contributions somewhere and then someone's not integrous or living a double life. That's risky. And so I just want you to know that I think it's fair that people have to wrestle these things out, and I understand that. And I love you guys, and I'm honored to be a part of this, and I'm thankful that you would pray and work through those issues and see what the Lord would have you do. And I want you to respond and not react. That's why we're not doing that tonight. I want you to go pray about that. Think about it. Talk to your spouse. See what she says, and whoever has the bigger number wins. Okay, it's just one of those things where this will take some sacrificial giving, right? Sacrificial things are where we give beyond the normal, things that we would normally feel safe to give. And if that's the first time you've ever been down that road, I don't blame you. That's a big moment. The other day, I was at a checkout line, and there was a lady getting her groceries, and I walked up kind of beside her as she was checking out, and I put my stuff down next to hers, and I told the lady, hey, ring this up too, if you don't mind, we're together. And she looked at me like, bro, I don't know you, and we are not together. You know what I mean? And then she realized I was paying, and she was like, we're together. And so she took her groceries, and she actually whispered when she talked to me. She just said, thank you. And I could just see I just felt like I needed to help this lady. And then she told me as I came out the door, she waited, and she said, I've done that for someone before, but no one's ever done that for me. And she said, I just needed that today. And I said, well, I'm glad it could help. It was not substantial. I went to my next meeting, and someone walked up to me and said, hey, this is kind of random, but I just feel like I'm supposed to give you this. And they gave me double what I spent to help that lady out with groceries. This was about 5 weeks ago this happened. And so I laughed about it, and I thought, how random is that, right? So I got home, and I said, Sharon, you're not going to believe this. And she goes, you're not either. Wait till I tell you something. She goes, I don't even get it. She said, someone just Venmo'd us $250 and told me not to give it back. And I told them we didn't need it, and they said, that's not why we're doing it. We just felt like we were supposed to do it for you. And I just stared at her, and I was like, well, someone gave me this too. I'm like, what in the world? And I don't think it was about us getting a few dollars that day, because we were fine. I think God was working on me about me not worrying about this. I think he was like, hey, buddy, I've got everything ACC is going to need. I can take care of this. You can't outdo me, and you're not going to worry about this, because these weren't substantial dollars, where I'd say, oh, these were life-changing moments. They were just little moments like God was like, hey, I've got this. And I don't tell those stories a lot because I don't want to sound too hocus pocus, but it was just a really interesting day. And I was amazed and just comforted that God has his hand on us, So just be comforted with whatever the Lord is working on. I understand that that's going to be a journey for you guys to pray through, but just pray about it. Just ask the Lord and listen, and then see what would he maybe put on your heart to do. The chart of gifts, the reason I said that is there's one down here as low as $6, okay? I would say that's a cup of coffee, but now a cup of coffee is $8.25 at Starbucks. We should all boycott that place now. If someone has $6 and they feel like they could return that to the Lord, I love being able to know that they're a part of what God does here. They really are. But at the top, it will take some really substantial contributions for sure to get us close to a number like this to get going. So our goal is $4.5 million. That's based on some real specific calculations of what we would take in and then what we would finance at the remaining balance based on what we have in the bank now, and to stay in a really healthy place as a church. So that's kind of how we came up with that dollar at the time. And so there's one guy there that's $1 million. But I sat down across from a guy who wasn't even 40 years old. And he said, hey, this is really sacrificial for us, but my wife and I feel like the Lord wants us to give you $1 million for the church to kick the campaign off. And it was before we talked about the campaign, so it was really amazing. So we already had that $1 million in hand. So I drew a new guy there. Okay, so now there's another one. I don't see anything. Yeah, I started to erase them, and I just felt convicted. I was like, no, fill them back in. No, I really have no idea what the Lord will put on your heart, but it'll take some substantial things. 500. Obviously, these are large contributions. There's $100,000 marks, and for some people that's reachable, right? Or 75 or 50s, all the way down to much lower numbers. But if we kind of chip away at this, and those that are able to do substantial things that way, or those that just bring a little bit that they say, God, this is yours. And when we put fish in his hands, he multiplies it, right? It's not the amount of stuff we put in his hands. They didn't give him much to work with, right? It was like, hey, here's a little bit of bread and a little bit of fish. And it's so cool in that story because he tells the disciples, perfect, set them all down in groups of 50 to 100. That's in the Bible. And they set them all in circles, and they're like, why are we sitting them down? Did you see how much food? And he was like, I saw. And when he started to pass it out, everybody was full, and there were baskets left over. And then it's a cool story because he makes them get in a boat and leave. And it says because he's mad at them because their hearts were hardened as they didn't understand the miracle of the fish and the loaves. And then he goes out on the water, and I love how the Bible says it. It says Jesus was about to pass by them when they were in a storm. Wasn't even going to stop and help them. He was like, you need to learn. But it's an amazing story of just God's provision. I mean, he has it all. So he'll take care of all of that. That's kind of a little way we can visualize, I guess, how we're going to have to get there with some substantial giving and then some other smaller gifts. And collectively as a team and a family, as a church, I think we can get there. That number sounds big, but then when I look around at Argyle, that number is about 4 houses, right? I mean, is that fair? It's real. So Lord's house, and then thousands of houses at those dollars. I just go, God, it's here. It's just, how are we going to get there? So I know the Lord can do that through us collectively. If everybody does something instead of a few people do everything, we're a lot healthier church. Well, let's bow our heads. Lord, I'm just humbled to be here. I don't think I ever imagined in this amount of time just the depth of relationship and the things that I get to celebrate in these lives. Just to see what you're doing in marriages and in our kids, and just your care for us. Man, things we walk through this year with Jimmy. Just so many in this room. God, every day we need you, and we need each other. And we have been so blessed to sincerely just do life and trust you with our future and our families and things we understand and things we don't understand. But man, if we can lead humbly and just stay before you and trust you, I know that all of this is in your hands. And so I just ask you to continue to keep us in that place where we're dependent on you and fully trusting you. And as we grow and build, help us not to lose the heart of what God is here as a family, and the connection and love we have for each other and for others and for you. Some of these in this room have been through some really tough things, and we have leaned on each other through them, and we're not done caring for each other. We've got to be here for that reason. This is the body of Christ and the family of Christ. And so I think that we can be part of that body, that you've gifted and empowered each one and given them your Holy Spirit and distributed these gifts just as you determined in 1 Corinthians 12. You've called all of them to serve you with their heart and their life. And you have specific things that you want to do through them. And so thank you for this time, just to celebrate this and trust you as we move forward to put a permanent home here, the way we feel you've called us to do that. In Jesus' name, amen.